We'll start that one again then. Because I was streaming into YouTube, but I didn't have the auto stream on. But anyway, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to another round of your console tier 2 season. It's myself, Cotcas, who seems to be becoming a little bit more of your regular commentator. Ace seems to not want to be not ill on a Friday. It's myself alongside, who is actually your regular commentator, Demizzy. Good evening, Demizzy. How excited are we for the action that's coming up? Yeah, with Nick only 6 thousandths off Max van der Geest for that pole position, but he's 5 tenths or 4 and a bit tenths above Manlike in that third place spot, although he's just been displaced by Lawrence, who goes up into third place. Simbarock slots himself into that last place in FRT typical around the final corner, 125.967, just ahead of Lawrence. The drivers are very, very close. Tree has invalidated. Alpha Kevin is heading through the first sector. More minutes, although, is coming out of the final one, and he's going to be into the 126.1s at just 4 thousandths off of Manlike in that 5th place. But we've got 4 drivers in the 126.1s. We've got Alpha Kevin, who's heading through the 2nd sector now, looking to improve on his teammate's time. His teammate, 126.1, was a 10th and a bit off of the Williams of Lawrence in that 4th place. Niall Gio begins his lap. Chris, RBL, Finley, Harvey and Tree all yet to get out of the pits. Having said that, Chris actually does come out of the pits. He was out, but he invalidated on that first run, and so unfortunately he was unable to make it count. Alpha Kevin round the final couple of corners. What sort of time is the Mercedes going to be able to set? Well, none, as it turns out, as he's going to tuck into the pits. Niall Gio will be the next driver. He's currently heading through Sector 1, 2 podiums so far this season. Be looking to make it 3 tonight. The McLaren's teammate is currently up in 2nd place. That is TTM Nick. And Gio, well, he's just about to head through Cops. And what sort of time is he going to be able to put in? Just clipping the curb on the inside, riding it on the outside, and then heading into Maggots and Beckett's, where you've got to keep the minimum speed up as much as you physically can. And Gio there, just riding the curbs, taking it easy on the throttle, but riding the curbs quite aggressively to make up for going easy on that throttle. And Gio now, a couple corners to go. This one, well, you only just tap the brakes on the entry, making sure that you don't lock up, and then coming around to the penultimate corner. And then the final one, it's sort of a chicane before you come out to one that you can pretty much ignore if you get the turn in right, and Gio heads into 5th place. 126.065 is the time that he sets, and he slots himself ahead of Manlike.
V-carb. So, take a look at some of the laps, of course. Chris will be the one leading that little train of cars. Let's see what his Sector 2 split will be. It's a 2.6 purple for the Kick Sauber man now going through these final couple of corners, of course. Very easy to invalidate through here and to mess up the lap, but Chris is going towards the line, going through the penultimate corner, if I can get my words out, and now going into the final quarter, rounding through this flat-out right-hander across the line. It's going to be a 26-1 for the Kick Sauber man. Next across the line, Finley, who comes into the pits, but FRT Harvey, on the other hand, he is going to be finishing that lap, going into penultimate corner, nearly hits the sausage curb on the inside, but now comes across the line. It's good enough for third place, and it's a 25.9.
I mean, good enough is a bit of an understatement if he's on that podium at the moment. But, I mean, 3/10 or 2.5 off Max van der Geest in that pole position at the moment. He's got a lot of work to do. Nick and van der Geest on laps now. Van der Geest improving 0.02 of a second in that first sector. And it's showing up as purple. And this time, I'm inclined to believe it. Now he's coming out. He's got Cops as his next brakings. Well, he doesn't have to brake there. But that would be a very, very daring move. And especially with 9 minutes left in qualifying, you don't really need to run that risk. Tree, in the meantime, slotting himself above Niall Gio with a 126.042, 2.023 seconds ahead of the Frenchman. And Max van der Geest now, he's coming out of the second sector and he's gained 6 thousandths in that penultimate sector, also the second sector. And he's only got one more to go, but he's invalidated on that lap. Just running a little bit too wide, taking a little bit too much curbing. And that is Van der Geest's lap over. Looking to see if we've got anyone else on a push lap. We've got a Mercedes of Manlike who's going to come around the final couple of corners. He's expended all of his ERS, so he's not going to have anything out of the final corner. He's going to try and use what little he has to get up and gain by a 10th. He's up into that 7th place. And Kevin's, he heads up into second, improving, or third even, improving by a quarter of a second, is what I meant to say if I got my words out correctly. Lawrence has got 2 more corners to go. There's Simbarox, I believe. Yeah, Simbarox it was, coming around the final corner. 500ths behind Manlike and just behind Lawrence. But Lawrence now, he'll be improving. And he moves up into that 3rd place. So nobody being able to challenge the top 2 just yet, but a lot of drivers getting closer and closer.
Absolutely. We can see a couple of drivers now wearing the final couple of corners. Actually, I don't think there's anyone on a lap, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I can't actually see anyone. There's an Alpine coming through, Magnussen Beckett's. That's Finley on his out lap. There's a Red Bull just coming out as well. Monitor, who is on an invalidated lap. So that's pretty much all your second runs done. You've got Max van der Geest, who's leading the way currently, who's just gone out of the pits to start his 3rd run. TTM Nick in 2nd place with a 25.6. ET8 Lawrence in 3rd place, followed by Kevin's in 4th. Schumacher in 5th, then Harvey and Typical. The FRT duo in 6th and 7th. Manlike in 8th. Simbarox in 9th. Tria in 10th. El Guio in 11th. More Minotaur in 12th. Chris in 13th. Nam in 14th. Finley in 15th. And Alpha Kevin is one of the only 2 drivers who's still yet to set laps, but I do believe Finley is now on a lap going through the Sector 1 split now, so 27.4. It's not showing up as purple, so I don't think it's going to be too close to Max van der Geest, but of course it will be a banker lap for the Aversio man, as he is now coming through the 2nd sector, now through this little straight, which in GT racing, that is where the pit lane is actually supposed to be in that, but now going through Cops into the right-hander flat out on this game, actually. And now he's got an Aston Martin who's moving out the way for him. But now he's going through the famous Maggots and Beckett's corner. One of the most technical corners on this track now comes out of it. Lots of high speed and now opens the DRS. What Sector 2 split time is it going to be? It's going to be a 2.7 for the Aversio man now going through into the final couple of corners here. What lap time is it going to be for the man driving for the Alpine, of course? Still not set a lap just yet. He will be finishing the lap. Now going through this final little chicane here. Try not to hit the sausage curbs too much, but now little slide on the exit there. Not going to be too much bother for him as he comes across the line now. It's good enough for 10th place, and it's a 26.0.
Yeah, third driver to go into that 26.0s. One of those being Niall Gio, who's just started his second push lap, and he'll be wanting to improve. He doesn't need to improve by much if he wants to climb the order, as everyone from 4th place down to about where Niall is in 12th is incredibly close, with about 2/10 between them. If you're including Minotaur in that as well, it's only about 2.5 tenths. Gio not improving in the first sector. He is half a tenth down. So there's a lot of time to be found for the McLaren, but he's got the opportunity to find it. Never mind, as he dips a tyre into the gravel, and that could be his run over. He's going to continue on, though, I believe, and try to set that lap. Half of his ERS tank left, so absolutely why not? And Gio just coming out of Copse Corner now, just trying to push the extremities of the track with 5 minutes to go in the session. I'm not surprised, and no, he does back out of it in the end. The McLaren just giving us a little wave to indicate that he was not anymore on a push lap, and he will be coming in. I'm looking for the next driver on this circuit. Man likes on an out lap. Van der Kiest, he was the next driver on a lap, and he's improved 125.507, and he will retake, well, he will retake that fastest lap from himself as he goes up into first place. Nick is the next driver. He's 2/10 off of Max van der Kiest, but he is improving, and he's only got 2 more corners to go. Can he improve? As there's a huge lock-up into the chicane, but coming out of it, he seems to be pretty okay. And does Nick improve? He does, but not by enough. Only 6/10. So he will slot in second place. Once again, Alpha Kevin in 4th. And drivers are now preparing themselves for their final runs. 4 minutes on the clock. And at the moment, Max van der Kiest has a stranglehold on this pole position.
Definitely a whole 1.3 tenths of a second above his closest rival, TTM Nick, who is even a whole tenth ahead of his closest competitor of ET8 Lawrence. But we could see everyone now either on their in laps or just going into the pits now. So final runs now being set up, but it is, as you said, Max van der Kiest on pole, followed by TTM Nick. I can't get my words out. In second place, Lawrence in 3rd, then Alpha Kevin in 4th. Kevin's is in 5th. Schumacher in 6th. FRT Typical and FRT Harvey in 7th and 8th. Manlike in 9th. Simbrox 1 in 10th. Finley in 11th. True in 12th. Neil Guio in 13th. More Minotaur in 14th. Chris in 15th. And Nam will be the last of the pack.
At the moment, that is, with 3 minutes on the clock. Drivers getting out for their final laps. We've got TTM, Nick and Alpha Kevin, the only drivers on track at the moment, although Harvey and Niall have just come out of the pits and they are currently in Sector 1. Nick and Alpha Kevin will dive in and they'll try to get the turnaround as quickly as possible to get that final lap underway. But with, with the clock ticking down, the time is around now where the drivers will want to be going out into the pits. And just there, we watched a that of Minotaur. And, the teams are taking a while to put the cars in the boxes. And now they're coming out of them with a Haas. That is what has happened here? Looks like we might have had a disconnection. I don't know if that's only on my end.
I think that's your end, right?
Oh.
I'll try and get you back in. Just give me a second if I can find you on my friends list.
Cheers. In the meantime, I will switch to an intermission screen because my Xbox is very, very slow. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in the session, and we're back in the session with a few drivers still on laps. Alpha Kevin, the only one, well, and Chris RBL as well, not able to do anything else to improve on their times. Nick is improving ever so slightly. Lawrence isn't ever so slightly, and Max van der Geest, he's even more ever so slightly improving on his time. Kevin's has picked up 0.163 seconds on that last lap, and well, in the first two sectors. And we'll see what time he gets as he comes across the line. He's clearly found time somewhere. And can he gain any more? As that was Tree going up into 5th. Kevin's finds his way into 4th place. Only just off of Lawrence. But Lawrence across the line does not improve. So Kevin's just misses out on that final podium spot. As typical, displaces both of them with a 125.666. Nick is improving by over a 10th, and Max van der Geest has finished his session. This could be pole position for the McLaren man. We'll see as he comes around the final couple of corners. He's got his teammate ahead of him. Niall Gio will be the first McLaren to set a time. Nick will be the second. Gio with a 126.065 at the moment, and he will come across the line. Does he improve on that? He does. He's up to P11. Nick is up to pole position by just 6 thousandths of a second, and TTM Nick, for him, that is an incredible lap. He's pulled that out of the bag. And the McLaren will be sitting on that pole position for the console tier 2 round around Great Britain.
Just want to say how close the gaps were between first and second. 6 thousandths of a second between Nick and Max van der Geest. We can see your final order here. You've got TTM Nick on pole position, followed by Max van der Geest in second place. FRT Typical, he'd come in third, followed by Lawrence in fourth. TF10 Kevin's in 5th, followed by Finley in 6th, then Alpha Kevin in 7th, Simbrox 1 in 8th, More Minotaur in 9th, Tria improved up to 10th place, Manlike in 11th, then Nel Guio, Schumacher, Harvey, Chris and Nam rounding out your final couple of grid slots, as we just have to wait for a lobby restart now, which is mandatory in WOR, and as we have seen for the entire game. But that looked like a very good qualifying session, and I hope that comes into the race.
Yeah, and it was incredibly close, actually, between the top two. Just 6 thousandths are separating them at the flag, with Max van der Geest dominating the entire qualifying session. But then right at the end, Nick was able to just slot his way into that pole position. But, well, I mean, these conditions may not stick around for the race. I got excited there for a second. These conditions may not stick around for the race, and we will get to watch a little bit of carnage in the rain as the drivers, they've been tasked with retiring from the session as quickly as possible. Some will drive around, but well, we'll watch them have a little bit of fun now. There's 2 jump starts, Harvey and Chris. 3 retirements, 6 retirements. That becomes 7. And then that's somebody going round in the background. That is Schumacher, I believe. There's 4 inside each other into turn 1, not even 4 wide. Max van der Geest cuts the corner and then slides across. Lawrence leads the race. Somebody didn't even get off the line. That was a Aston Martin of Harvey or Simbarox. Manlike with 10 seconds worth. He's still fighting away with Schumacher. And Schumacher losing the rear, trying to retire himself. He's only lost his front wing. There goes Manlike's front right. And Schumacher has just retired. So that is the real end of the session. And so we will wait for the green flag to drop around the British Grand Prix circuit. We can talk now about race predictions. And, well, Dom, give me a short answer. 1 word, and then I'll allow you to expand on it. But at the moment, well, it could be 1 word, it could be 2, because it could be their name. But who is going to come out on top?
I'll have to say Nick. I believe he'll be the one getting the win, but I do believe it will be a very close battle throughout the entire race between him and Max van der Geest as well. But Max van der Geest, will he keep his podium streak going? The first 4 races, second, and third last time out in Las Vegas, which I unfortunately missed. But last week's winner was, in fact, Nick, and is on a winning streak, currently winning in Las Vegas and Singapore. So he's definitely trying to get back into the championship fight. He is only 7 points behind Max van der Geest, but the man in second place qualified all the way down in 11th, so wasn't the best of qualifying for Manlike, but of course, points are scored in the race, as I normally tell many of the drivers. But of course, he's got a lot to build up. But for Silverstone, we do luckily see loads of overtakes, so I'm quite excited to see how it pans out. Who do you predict will win?
Well, it should be very exciting. I think it's hard to look past Max van der Geest, but he has bottled it on. Well, I say bottled it. He's missed out on a number of occasions with those multiple podiums just coming back to back to back to back now with second, and then a third place. So, yeah, it is hard to look past him for that race victory. But Nick, he's on 2 wins on the bounce. He's got that pole position. And I think TTM Nick could convert it and then take the win and what would be the championship lead. Even if Max van der Geest came in second, Nick would go on top on race wins. A turnaround for a man who, well, he finished in P13 in China. So definitely a turnaround for Nick. We could be seeing somebody surprising come back. FRT Harvey has had a decent start to the season, winning in China and then 2 6th places before missing the last round in America, or in Las Vegas more specifically. But I think we've got a lot of contenders.
Absolutely. If we look further down, who actually qualified well? Alpha Kevin qualified decently, I think. He's got 5th, DNF, and 7th. So, of course, not the best starts to the season, but still a decent start and pretty consistently within top 7s. But, of course, a couple other drivers who I think will do well. Typical, I think, qualified 3rd, if I remember correctly. He's down in 10th, but, of course, this race can get him back into the championship fight. The championship, I have to say, is pretty close in terms of the drivers, of course. 7 points separate the top 3, so this season to go, so I'm quite excited to see who will be the champion come the end of the season. But of course, we've got 10 whole rounds in this season. We'll go to Zandvoort next week, then Hungary, Canada, Austria, and then we finish off in Brazil, a track that I really love, and I hope you at home also love as well. So quite excited to see how the rest of the season goes as well. Take a look at how many pole positions everyone's got, and we've got Harvey, Manlike, Nick, and Max van der Geest all on 1, but Nick, of course, got the pole position today, so that's 2 pole positions for Nick, and race wins. Got Nick with 2, Manlike with 1, and Harvey with 1 as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we are halfway, well, we will be halfway through the season now as we end here in Britain. But, I mean, it's a season that is absolutely flying by with a lot of with a lot of action. As you mentioned, the top 3 are very, very close together. And, well, you got the likes of Niall Gio waiting in the wings, Harvey, Simbarox as well, who could take an opportunity from a poor weekend from the top 3 to just really throw themselves into that championship contention. Niall 21 points behind the leader and only 14 behind Nick, and Harvey 7 points behind him. So I think we've got lots of drivers with lots of opportunities to come back in the championship as well and truly open. It's not like essentially real life F1 where it was done by the halfway point of the season. I think that's me being negative, but it's now been confirmed that Max Verstappen has won the title, so I can go back to being negative and talking about F1 and real life F1 in the sense of the Red Bulls dominating. We won't get that for much longer, though, because I think 2025 will be a very interesting season. But back to the point, and, well, halfway through the season is where we're going to be after Britain. We've only got a month to go of the season, and we're going to have a huge break in it of about 2-3 weeks, something like that. So, yeah, 2 weeks where we're going to miss WOR action. And it's going to be 2 very long weeks in that sense. We're going to be heading soon to the green flag. We're going to be heading soon to the 5 lights for the Tier 2 race.
Definitely, we're just waiting for the drivers to put on their setups and strategies off the top of my head. And after racing yesterday, I think medium soft will be the strategy for today, around lap 14 or 15. Not exactly sure on field, it depends really where you've started. But still got a little bit of time for until the race actually starts. We do see cloudy conditions, so possibly maybe rain come the end of this race. Just spice things up quite a lot. Of course, I don't have the weather forecast currently, which is unfortunate. I don't really have the access to that data on me currently, but yeah, just I don't really know what else to say, to be honest.
I'll try and get the forecast before the lights go out, but it's going to be very, very soon that they are going to go out. And yeah, we will be getting to green flag racing. The forecast looks, well, it looks murky above the drivers. And yeah, I'm just trying to get a reply from our resident driver / commentator Niall Gio as to whether it is going to be rainy here in Silverstone at any point in this session. It will certainly spice it up. It will open the field up to a hell of a lot of action. But we're going to go to the 5 red lights for the British Grand Prix. It's lights. And it's action. Nick gets away well. Max van der Geest is going to get away even better. He's going to be on the inside line as they head into turn number 1. And the RB is going to take the lead of the race. Nick, though, with the outside line. He's going to retake it, and Van der Geest is going to get squeezed out on that inside line. Looking further back, it could be 3 wide for what looks like P5. Finley, Kevins, and Alpha Kevin are fighting away. Finley and Kevins have squirmed into a 2 wide battle. Is that somebody going incredibly wide off the track? Who on earth is that? That is going to be Schumacher, who returns to the track in P15. He's fighting now for that P15, P16 spot, but Typical takes that podium spot off of Lawrence. Kevins is slotting into P5. Finley and Alpha Kevin side by side as they're heading up to Cops now. We've seen moves made here in the past. We've seen moves go wrong here in the past. Someone who is going to try a chance a move is going to be Tree and Minotaur. They're side by side through Cops, and on the exit, Tree will get that position off of Minotaur. But Nick is going to lead this race on lap 1 of the British Grand Prix.
Definitely, what a start we have just seen. Nick is currently leading the way, followed by Max van der Geest, and Typical taking 3rd place ahead of Lawrence. We can see very, very close between the two of them. Of course, DRS isn't enabled until lap 2, so we can see an Aston Martin in the background actually go slightly wide there, side by side, between Schumacher and Harvey's. I think I've seen a little bit of damage on that, might have just been thing on my screen, but we can see loads of battling in the background here. You've got Schumacher trying to make a move on Moore here, squeezes them slightly off the track, but Moore Minotaur has got the front there, but Simbrox does also get the move done, but also Tria and Moore Minotaur and Schumacher also fighting in the background. We can see quite a squabble back there going through sector 1 there. As we can see a little bit of an incident back there with Simbrox and Tria. Moore Minotaur loses a couple of positions but gets straight back into it. Still side by side between Nail Guio and Harvey, and also some of the Red Bulls up ahead. I can see it as well if we take a look ahead. Lawrence and Typical also battling in going into Brooklands, I think the corner is called, but Typical does keep the position. If we look further behind now, Schumacher losing a couple of positions, but still side by side with Tria, so very, very close series of so far we're seeing in this race, but still Nick who is leading the way.
Yeah, Nick leading the way, only 2 tenths ahead of Max van der Geest, and that goes up and down very, very quickly. Gio getting past Trias. Tree really seems to have issues. He's dropped to the back of the field, and he's ghosting as well, so I think he's had an incident. There's still more fighting going on as the rear of the field gets very spicy, and Harvey becomes the first retirement of the session. We've got a virtual safety car because of that incident for the Aston Martin. Didn't quite see what happened, but it was a huge squabble around where he was in that fight for around P12. Minotaur, Nam, Chris RBL and Tree all fighting together. Tree is going to come into the pits, presumably to fix some damage on his car. Yeah, he does have a right end plate off. It's not a full safety car, so he's still going to lose quite a bit of time. But the Haas car is going to come into the pits to replace that wing. Schumacher, in the meantime, he is going to probably be the biggest winner of that start. Indeed, he is joint biggest winner because of those soft compounded tyre ahead of Manlike and Nam. But I'd say the biggest winner, even though not statistically, is going to be Max van der Geest, who leads this race ahead of Nick. And he will be itching for the green flag to be waved. It is indeed waved now. And we are back to racing. As back to racing goes Alpha Kevin on the inside of Kevin. It's the battle of the Kevins as we head through, and it's the battle for P5 and P6. Cops is another place where we could see a move. We saw a move earlier on with one of these drivers. We could be seeing it once again. And Alpha Kevin is just going to slot in behind. He doesn't quite have that pace. And, well, Beta Kevin ahead of him. He, at the moment, is going to hold on to it. Am I seeing, though, a couple of droplets of rain. I don't know if that may be my eyes deceiving me, but I think we could have rain on the horizon here in Britain very, very soon.
I can tell you there. The clouds are definitely getting much thicker, and it does look like it is about to rain. So British weather striking once again, possibly for this race, but it's still Max van der Geest who's leading the way after getting a pretty decent restart after the virtual safety car did. And Nick is just behind him, 4/10 back now as typical. Actually, no. The fastest lap is going quite down as Schumacher does get it in the end. With a 31.7, he's the only driver on the soft compound tyre. The rest are on mediums apart from Trier, who of course boxed onto the hards under the virtual safety car. We can see a couple of battles now going into this DRS zone. I think I just saw a Ferrari try and fight Simbrox 1 in the background for 9th position. Don't think that was quite successful. We can see going into Brooklands, I think this is. We can see a little bit of contact between Typical and Nick as there's a yellow flag in the pit lane, as that is a virtual safety car, I believe. Trier must have had a little bit of an incident on the start finish straight as he did end up spinning. Didn't cause a full safety car, but I think damaged his race enough to get him out of contention. Maybe he was hoping for a safety car, but it's only virtual for now, as that is 2 virtual safety cars in this race so far.
And I believe we can only have a maximum of 3, so we've only got 1 more virtual safety car to go. Other than that, it will be a full course safety car, which will tighten the field up even more than they already are. It will allow the likes of Tree to catch back up, who's going to have to do an entire lap or with no front wing. I think he would have lost it on that curbing around the final corner, which is, it can just be killer if you approach it at any wrong angle. And for the Haas, it has been killer for his race. He's now 40 seconds off Chris RBL. But a couple of incidents early on at a relatively open track. This is the British Grand Prix we're talking about. It's not like it's not like it's very tight. There's lots of room. It's just drivers have been fighting so hard that, well, room hasn't been something afforded to the likes of Harvey, who retired from the session after a scrap with somebody. Don't know exactly who. We are back to green flag racing for the 2nd time. Well, 3rd time if you count the race start in this race. And Max van der Geest will continue to lead the way. He seems to have gotten the edge over Nick. But with DRS enabled, Nick is going to close right back in. And this will be where Max van der Geest, his advantage is slashed. Because of the fact that Nick, well, he'll just be able to, even if he's 9/10 behind, he'll be able to gain all that time on him. Because there's 2 DRS straights around this circuit as Tree gives up. He retires from the session in the pit lane. He did quite a good job to get round to the pit lane in the first place that quickly. But yeah, Tree retires from the session. This was not his day. TTM Nick, though, Tree's teammate in TTM, even if they're not teammates on track, with one being a Haas and one being a McLaren. Nick is incredibly close to the TF10 driver of Max van der Geest. There's not going to be any teamwork. There's no reason for affinity here. It's just pure and simply racing. Nick closing in on Max van der Geest. Could he make a move? Not quite yet. He could be shaping one up for the final couple of corners. And the McLaren, nope, he's just going to stay behind. We could be seeing Lawrence, though, go for a move onto the podium. He's around the outside of Typical around the last couple of corners. Typical just clinging to the inside line. Lots of racing room allowed from Lawrence, and that allows Typical to just stay in the battle and then get back ahead into P3. Lawrence, though, he could be shaping up a move. Not quite. Not quite. And so he's going to sit behind. He's going to wait for the DRS on another lap. Kevin's and Alpha Kevin side by side. Kevin's once again on top in that, and Finley is inviting himself in, and he is going to pull alongside. He was ahead as there's contact. Simarox and Schumacher just making contact on the exit, just a little bit over the top. And Schumacher and Simbarox, they've had their races absolutely ruined, with Schumacher 4 seconds off, Simbarox 4 seconds and climbing off of Schumacher. It's side by side there between the 2 Mercedes, with Manlike and Alpha Kevin. Alpha Kevin, who must have made a mistake to drop behind Kevin's Finley and Manlike now, as they headed into Cops. He backed out of that move on Manlike, but now he's down in P8.
Yeah, no clue what happened there in the background with Schumacher and Simrox, but we can see loads of battling up in front. I think that's just basically a byproduct of such hard battles that we've seen throughout this entire race. But still Max van der Geest leading the way, but can Nick try and make a move? Not this corner, possibly. later on in the lap where we can see FLT Typical and Lawrence close to each other, and possibly Finley trying to make a move on Kevin's here, but unsuccessful as Kevin's stays ahead. We've got Chris and Nam fighting, as Nam actually does go into the pits, which is quite early from what I was expecting, but is Neil Guio who does take fastest lap currently. Still Max van der Geest leading the way going into this next DRS zone. Of course, DRS is very, very effective on this track. We've seen it produce so many moves so far in this race, so you might see possibly even more throughout the rest of this, as Nam, Schumacher and Simrox all in the pit. I'd assume possibly for damage purposes, but can't fully guarantee that, as we've got Kevin's trying to make a move on Finley. Actually, no, Finley going around the outside, not giving him much room, Kevin's is, but Kevin's does in fact stay ahead, and they did make him lose a little bit of time, but that won't really matters. Of course, the DRS, as I said earlier, is so strong they'll just be able to catch straight back up. We can see loads of close battling here. Finley trying to take back and take revenge on Kevin's from that previous lap. Manlike as well, trying to get ahead, as well. As we can see a yellow flag in the first sector. I think that's Schumacher and Simrox just scrapping each other once again, as we can see Finley now going to the inside trying to make a move. Unfortunate for him as he stays behind for now, but it is very close between all of them. Lawrence and Typical also right behind each other trying to make a couple moves as well there, but going into lap 8 now, battles are close, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure who can still win this.
Yeah, I mean, Nick currently has the advantage. Max van der Geest had the advantage off the safety car restart, so it's, well, at the moment it's looking like it's going to be one of those. So we could be surprised, as I mentioned earlier. They have been the dominant drivers not only over the weekend so far, but over the season, with Nick having won 2 on the spin and Max van der Geest taking 4 podiums out of 4. Manlike is the only one splitting them in the championship with a first, second, and a third and a 7th, but we don't talk about that one in Singapore. But Nick and van der Geest, yeah, they're just looking so dominant as a pairing at the moment. Well, Max van der Geest certainly is saving. Nick is sort of saving, not as much, and I'm sure we'll be seeing moves start to be made as we head through the race. We're about to head on to lap 9, which will mean that we are about a third of the way through this Grand Prix, and there is we're nowhere near finished in terms of all the action that we're going to have on track. Max van der Geest is closer than ever to Nick, and he will be taking the lead of the races. There's yellow flags out. Schumacher having more issues in sector 1. And yeah, the contact between himself and Simbarox was race ruining for the both of them, and they'll be needing a safety car to get back into this one.
Absolutely, still yellow flags. He's about to get lapped as Chris actually gets speeding penalty and somehow retires for some reason after being in 11th place. So possibly a hardware issue or a software issue. I'm not exactly sure of that, but that means that it's 3 retirements so far, and another 3 drivers very far behind, so all of them not really have too much chance in this race, as Schumacher one is about to get lapped, as he does get in fact lapped, as he might even be retiring from the session, but I'm not fully sure on that. Typical and Lawrence very, very close to each other, as Lawrence is trying to make a move around the outside, going towards Cops in fact, but unsuccessful as he stays behind. Typical, Max van der Geest still leading the way, followed by Nick, but there's loads of position switching between the pair of them, so still quite a lot of this race to go. 3 retirements from this race, as I mentioned earlier, as we could see. Our first track limits penalty for accumulating many warnings for TF10 Kevin, who doesn't drive for TF10 anymore. He drives for EVR now, in fact.
Yeah, he's just not got the budget to change his name, as we've got 4, 5, 6 drivers, you could argue, in contention to make moves. And Lawrence is going to be the first of those around the outside of FRT Typical, backing out, maybe looking for the switchback, and then looking for the switchback of the switchback, but not making that move stick, just because, well, Typical still has the grip. Those mediums aren't falling off just yet, and we've got a huge group of 9 drivers just following themselves through, from Van der Geest all the way down to Niall Gio. They're stuck to each other, and Kevins and Finley getting a little bit too stuck to each other. Finley losing the rear because of contact between himself and Kevin's. A man like is going to slot through. Kevin's in the meantime, he has got a penalty. He's got 3 seconds worth, which is going to apply to his time in the end of the race. Switch for the lead. Nick moves past Van der Geest with the DRS, and the top 2, they just continue to fight away for the lead of this race. An FRT typical. He's just waiting 5/10 behind, but he's not really threatening just yet.
Absolutely. Nick, as you said, leader change, so Nick is now leading the way ahead of Max van der Geest, but Max van der Geest is hungry for P1 in his own, and his first win so far in this season, as Nick has already gotten 2 this season. Max van der Geest wants to increase his championship standing, as goes to the outside with the assistance of DRS, and as Max van der Geest goes through, going into the end of this DRS straight. Can't exactly remember what corner number that is, but Max van der Geest, who's leading the way at the end of lap 10 after leading at the start of it.
Yeah, not well. I mean, I was going to say not breaking away as much as he would have wanted to. I think him scrapping with Nick is actually benefiting the 2 of them, because it means that Typical isn't going to get anywhere close, and Lawrence isn't going to get anywhere close. They're just fighting at the moment for that P3 spot, and everybody else will just be looking at that battle for that P3 slot. Finley, he will continue in P7, looking to make his way up to P6 down the inside of Manlight into... Oh, what's the name of that corner? I don't have it in front of me, but he's made his way into the inside, as has Lawrence, and he's made a late switch on Typical. He could be making an outrageous move if he can pull it off around the outside, but Typical, just with that grip, hangs on the inside. Contact between the 2 as they head up now. 2 cops, and the Williams could be looking to take the lead of this battle, but Typical with the exit will just stay ahead. But as I was saying, yeah, Finley trying to send it on Manlike. He's not having the grip just yet, and so he's not making that overtake.
Definitely, we could see, as you said, Lawrence and Typical really, really close to each other. Also, Kevin's trying to get involved in that, and so is Manlike and Finley just behind. It's very, very close between all of them. As we can see, Nick is closing that gap between him and Max van der Geest. Unfortunately, not able to make a move just yet, as Lawrence does, in fact, make the move in the background, but we could see Kick going to the outside, maybe not staying just behind, but that is Lawrence occupying that final podium slot as it stands. Max van der Geest leading the way, still ahead of TTM, Nick, Lawrence, and Typical. Kevin's in 5th right now, but of course he's got a 3-second penalty. He's trying to make the move on Red Bull of Typical here. He's bump drafting him a little bit going into this section of corners, if I can get my words out. Now opens the DRS. I think Kevin's will just about stay behind, but it is very, very close between the 2 drivers trying to fight. Provisionally for 4th, Kevin's goes to the inside. Does he make the move down? Yes, he does. It's not quite over yet, but the inside turns into the outside for this race, for this corner. As we can see, Manlike actually trying to make a move as well, but it's unsuccessful. But Kevin's will be leading that battle so far, but Finley's also trying to fight back as well, as Manlike side into Cops and ahead of Typical. So for those tyres for Typical, definitely off a cliff right now, as even Finley is coming round into Magnus Rebecca, as Typical gone down all the way from 3rd to 7th within a lap.
Not his lap 12, and I think we could be seeing him coming to the pits as Nick retakes the lead of this race. Typical could lose another position as Alpha Kevin moves to the inside, then the outside of the final couple of corners, and he could be trying to make that move to the inside now on Typical. There's contact as Typical moves to cover him off. There's contact once again as Alpha Kevin almost sprints Typical. Typical replies by squeezing him off the track, and Gio trying to slot through, trying to have his Hamilton moment, and he was unsuccessful. There was contact between him and the Red Bull. Now Alpha Kevin seals that position much more conventionally into turn number 1. And Niall Gio could be trying to get involved in this battle as well. To the inside he goes. There's contact between himself and Typical as the Red Bull is starting to become another car magnet for the other ones. There's contact between himself and Kevin, and contact between himself and Gio as well. Gio with the DRS. Surely this is going to be a simple move. Typical squeezing him to the inside as much as he can, then trying to move across to make the corner. And Gio just doesn't have the grip enough to make his way through, nor does Kevin, which is why Typical tried to go through, but then Kevin slammed the door on him. And so the 7th, 8th and 9th will continue where they are.
Definitely, I just want to pay attention to how many positions everyone has gained. Lawrence and Kevin's up by 1, and Manlike is up by a whole 6 positions after starting 11th. So, although he started all the way down 11th, he has done pretty well to move up all the way to 5th. Typical loses 5 positions from the start. And Simbrox loses 4, but of course, Nam moves up by 5. That could be because of retirements as well, but if we look farther ahead, as I did unfortunately miss, Max van der Geest did move up to first place ahead of Nick in that DRS straight, as Max van der Geest will be leading the way going into not turn 14, lap 14 should I say, but it's very, very close between all of them, as More Minotaur will be the first one to go into the pits off the medium tyres currently. It is only lap 14, so a little bit early. He's trying to go for a little bit of an undercut, try and get back to the front of that train, but for More Minotaur it's going to be P10. But if we look further ahead, we can see Kevin's kind of being battled with behind by Manlike, opting for the outside, which does turn into the inside, as Kevin's also sends it onto Lawrence as well. But now, as I said, the outside turns into the inside. For Manlike, who will have the better traction coming out the corner, will be Kevin, as he does keep P4 away from Manlike.
Yeah, he's just holding it ahead of the Mercedes at the moment, but it's going to get very, very spicy in the next few laps. I think some of these drivers might even be waiting for the softs, as Minotaur has already switched onto them. I thought it was going to be a simple mediums lap 12 hard strategy right to the end. I was wrong, as well, I tend to be with strategy. That's why I'm here in the comms box and I'm not driving, because my strategies tend to go absolutely awry very, very quickly. Nick's going to make a late move for the lead of this race on Max van der Geest. They're side by side. Van der Geest with the exit. He pulls ahead, and the V-carb is going to stay in that P1 spot for now. But it's now developed into a battle between the top 6, as Alpha Kevin and Nao Gio both are going to come into the pits. They're both going to take off those mediums, and I'm sure they're going to follow in Minotaur's wake in switching onto the soft compound of tyre. 11 laps to go in this race, and we've still got lots of battles up and down the grid. The top 7 still needing to pit at least once in this Grand Prix. Gio, Alpha Kevin and Minotaur having come in on that previous lap. Gio and Alpha Kevin also looking for that undercut. I'm sure we'll see it come off, as we've seen many, many times before on this game, as there's moves being made almost 3 wide. Manlike, Kevin's and Finley were just waiting in the wings. Kevin's dives are very, very late, and Manlike takes the opportunity. He's around the outside, and the man who is currently in P5 will follow through now as Finley moves his way up. He could try to make a move on Manlike as well, but he's not going to make that move. We have seen the Alpine, though, go for moves like that, but not on this occasion. He taps the rear of Manlike as they head into Maggots, but out of Beckett's, he's not as close. DRS will be available to both of these drivers, but the momentum is only available to Finley. He dips a tyre on the grass in an attempt to make the move up the field as Nick retakes the lead of the race. It's side by side, Finley and Manlike. They're wheel to wheel as off the track goes Manlike. They're both going to come into the pits. Manlike stays ahead. I think there may have been damage for Finley. I saw something go flying off, and Nick has picked up a 10-second time penalty for coming into the pits just too fast. So it's all happening here in Silverstone.
Definitely, we could see basically everyone coming off the medium tyres now opting for the soft compound tyres. Quite interested to see how Nel Guio and Vendu go up against these drivers coming out of the pits. Of course, they went for a slight undercut, similar to More Minotaur, but of course, you can see Nick now coming out the pits, followed by Max van der Geest, but that gap is quite substantial as More Minotaur picks up the fastest up to 28.780, but I will assume that will be changing come the end of this race. But the gap between Nick and Max van der Geest is 1.4, as possibly for Nick that penalty could be removable in the steward's room after this race.
Possibly so. We will have to see, but I mean, a pit lane penalty is pretty clear cut, but he won't mind because, well, he might mind, but he's 1.4 seconds ahead of Max van der Geest. And without the DRS, I'm sure that's going to grow. With Lawrence now closing in on Van der Geest, we've seen how aggressive the drivers behind have been so far in this race. So it could all play in Nick's favour, even if he was unfortunate to pick up that penalty. Everyone on the grid down to 10th place is on softs. And so it's pretty much a level playing field. Niall Gio, by the way, and Alpha Kevin, they slashed that gap between themselves, and Kevin's in half, but it's still 1.8 seconds, which is not enough, as Finley picks up a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. He's not the first one to do that, with TF10 Kevin's picking one up earlier on in this Grand Prix, as we could see Lawrence make a move for that P2 spot. Indeed we do. And the Williams moves up. Van der Geest has nothing in response. And so the V-Carb has now dropped to P3. It's the first time in this race that we've seen Nick or Van der Geest threatened. And, well, 1.8 seconds now. Another 0.4 improvement from Nick. We could be seeing... We could be seeing the likes of Lawrence struggle now.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, getting out of the DRS train is quite substantial for your race, of course. You will be losing lots of time because the DRS train will just be pushing each other up and up, but Nick has increased that gap quite a lot after he pitted, and for Lawrence, he's basically on the back foot as Max van der Geest will be fighting him, trying to move on to second place once again, but for the two Dutchmen, it's P2 and P3 currently as that gap increases to 2.1 seconds as Nick needs to build up a 10-second gap if he does want to keep the win here. Of course, as I said, possibly removable in stewards, maybe got into a little bit of an incident on the pit entry. I didn't quite see on my screen, but it's still ET8 Lawrence in second place, just behind him, Max van der Geest, but it is very, very close, and I assume possibly a couple moves going into this next corner are still yet to happen. So Lawrence is a whole 5/10 up on his lap as Max van der Geest, and Manlike go for the outside line. Manlike doesn't get the move done, Max van der Geest does. It is second place for the TF10 man, ahead of Lawrence and Manlike didn't manage to get the move done, but TTM Nick does get faster slap as well in there, but still Max van der Geest in second place, followed by Lawrence and Manlike in fourth. Finley and Kevin's will also be trying to pick up some of the scraps from a couple of those overtakes as well, so we can see a bit of side-by-side action with Finley and Manlike, but Finley's staying behind for now, of course, but DRS open once again. He's in the slipstream now. Manlike moves to the inside line. Finley goes to the outside. Squeezed as much as he possibly can, but Finley stays behind as he does get a purple sector 1 here. He does stay behind. Going into the rest of this second sector, Lawrence now losing grip on to Max van der Geest as Manlike definitely trying to go for third place as well. Finley just behind Manlike here as he now goes through Maggots and Beckett's here. Very technical series of corners and really hard to get right, though. Now going out of those corners, DRS wide open once again, as it is basically a game of catch up between Max van der Geest and Lawrence. That gap decreasing and decreasing, very, very close, touching each other in the rear ends in the background, but it is Finley who will be staying behind for now, but of course very, very close series of battles between all of these drivers.
Yeah, we've seen Finley be very, very aggressive early on in this race. We haven't seen it, though, come off. And so I think later on in this race, we could be seeing him go for even more aggressive moves, which could go even more wrong. But at the moment, he's just sticking there in P5. He and Kevin's will not actually drop any positions because Niall Gio is 3.3 seconds behind with that group between 7th and 10th, just not gaining any time, probably due to fighting on the cars in front. But yeah, 3.6 seconds now between Kevin's and Gio. This is a pack that is going to battle for P2 pretty much from start to finish, with Nick having broken away. He will drop all the way down, I think, down to even P10, but on track at the moment, Nick is set to pick up his third victory of the season. Max van der Geest is set to pick up his 5th podium on the bounce. Nick would also be 3 wins on the bounce as well, with Lawrence currently holding on to that P3. It would be his first podium of the season, so it would be a good performance from him, but he could be making a move even further up ahead of Max van der Geest now into that P2, and the Williams makes that move stick. 2.5 seconds the gap between Lawrence and Nick, and that will be the target next up for that Williams. We've got 7 laps to go in this Grand Prix, Nick is still desperately trying to build that gap between himself and second place because that 10-second penalty is looming.
Absolutely, of course, Nick. Currently in first place, but that gap is increasing between him and Lawrence. So maybe the 10-second penalty won't need to affect him too badly. But of course, Max van der Geest will try to be making the move going into this next corner, man-like as well. And Finley close to each other as Finley will he be trying to make the move? No, he won't. He'll stay just behind as it is very, very close between Lawrence and Max van der Geest. In the background, man-like also trying to pick up some of the scraps from those overtakes, of course. Flashing means that they are recharging ERS though, saving the ERS for the straights here for now. Very, very close going into Maggots and Beckett's. Will it be his first podium for Lawrence, or will it be fifth podium for Max van der Geest? Will Manlike also try and get back onto the podium as well, trying to get back into this championship fire as Max van der Geest has now got the DRS. Lawrence doesn't, as he goes for the outside line. Going into this next corner, it's a right-hander here, as does take P2 away as he goes slightly wide as the battle of the Dutchman keeps raging on as Manlike's trying to disturb that, as well as we see a lapped car in the way, but that doesn't matter, as that is Schumacher being lapped for, I think, the second time this race, but is Manlike trying to fight back into P2, as well as that gap between Nick and Max van der Geest has increased to a whole 3 seconds as Manlike does send it audaciously going into these next corners, is trying to hold on going into this DRS straight, doesn't manage to hold on, but could Manlike try and make a move on the inside here? He opts for the inside, it breaks a little bit later than Lawrence, but can Lawrence get a switchback pulled off for Manlike? No, he can't, so it is Manlike currently residing in third place. We can also see Lawrence still fighting as well, but that gap between Nick and Max van der Geest is also now begun to decrease slightly. It's now 2.7 instead of 3 seconds like it was a little bit earlier on. But Manlike does have DRS this time, Max van der Geest does not. But will he be close enough to get a move done? No, he won't. He stays just behind, possibly setting up for a move going into the final breaking zone, as we can see. Now Guido and More Minotaur switch position. In the background is More Minotaur, and Typical are also fighting as Schumacher. I think is disconnected, but it is an audacious send from Typical and does make it stick. Can More Minotaur try and get a little switchback going? Yes, he can, as More Minotaur does take back 8th position. Now looking a bit further ahead, Lawrence is quite salty that Manlike did manage to get the position, so just behind Manlike, but can he make the move done? As we can see, Alpha Kevin moving up, actually fighting with Typical. Let's take a look at that. Typical, but Alpha Kevin has got the inside line here, but now on the DRS here, I think both drivers have got the DRS, but who will be the latest braking looks to be Typical, but it was the inside line for Alpha Kevin, but it's not anymore, as Typical does take the lead once again for P9 here, going back towards the front here. Finley only 2/10 behind Lawrence here, but Manlike also trying to fight back to catch up to Max van der Geest. Of course, he will not have DRS on Nick up ahead, but will Manlike be able to make a move? The gap is closing quite a lot. He opts for the outside, in fact, as Lawrence and Finley also battling in the background. Manlike moves up to second place. Lawrence moves up to fourth.
Yeah, they do in the end swap around for that P2. Apologies, by the way, because my microphone decided to disconnect because I pulled it closer to my face. And the wire just decided to come out, and that is why you could not hear me on that last occasion. But yeah, Max van der Geest losing that position to Manlike. Manlike, who's closing in on Nick, and it's going to come down continually with 2.6 seconds now between Nick and Manlike, with a 10-second penalty going the McLaren's way. But van der Geest, he'll be desperate to make this move. He will want that first victory with 4 podiums so far. No wins for our championship leader. This could all change this evening. Just having a look quickly at TTM Nick, he would currently be in the battle with Niall Gio, More Minotaur, and FRT Typical for 7th, 8th, and 9th. That is the state of affairs for him at the moment. Speaking of the battle between Gio, Minotaur, and Typical, let's have a look as Minotaur tries to cling onto the outside of Gio, who just made his way past the Red Bull. And yeah, he holds on to that P7 spot, does Gio. And I think he will stay there for a while, a little while longer at least. Finley right on the rear of Lawrence, but we've said that about him so many times this race. And the Alpine, he could be looking to make a move, closing in on the back of Lawrence. But so is Max van der Geest, who's closing in on the back of Manlike. And he makes that switch. P2 is his as they continue to close the gap down to Nick. It's now 2.3 seconds as we head almost onto lap 24, the third to last lap of the Squad Prix.
Yeah, Typical in the background did make up 2 positions there, as it's still now Guio and More Minotaur fighting in the background. More Minotaur might have the grip around the outside, and he actually does. So he does get the move done for 8th place. It is quite a close battle. Back here as Nam gets a 3-second penalty. Beats down in 11th and not battling anyone, so there's no need to pay attention to him. But between Nick and Max van der Geest, that gap is decreasing a lot. But there's only 3 laps left of the session, so I'm not sure if there will be enough time to get that done. As we could see, very close between 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, also 6th as well. For Kevin's trying to pick up some of the scraps from those overtakes, but still Max van der Geest, who's leading that little series of cars. But we can see a little bit of action in the background. No, we can't. But it's still Finley, who is just behind Lawrence, as Manlike is literally just behind, going through Maggots and Beckett. So surely we must see a move going into the next corner. Coming out of Beckett, opens the DRS for the final time on this lap. Opts for the outside line this time. He does get it done on Max van der Geest. Can Lawrence also pick up the crumbs from that? No, he can't. He stays behind. So does Finley, but Kevin's is also trying to fight back as well, as we can see. Max van der Geest is in 3rd place, currently behind Manlike, and Lawrence is behind him, and Finley as well in that little train of cars. We've of course got another DRS straight coming up. We've got DRS detection through here, so now going through these couple of corners. DRS will be open after this little kink to the left. Will Max van der Geest be able to take down Manlike going into this next corner? I don't think he's close enough, in fact. Possibly Lawrence can try and make a little move up the inside. No, he can't. He stays just behind. We can see very close now as ET8 Lawrence is literally up his backside going into Cops, in fact. Now, can he make the move going into Cops? He is right in the slipstream now, but not close enough to get the move done. But Lawrence, can he make the move going into Maggots and Beckett? No, he can't, and that's quite smart, I would have to say. Definitely don't want to try and push for a move against Beckett. That's surely to finish in an incident. Is DRS is open for one final time. I don't think Max van der Geest is close enough to Lawrence, but will Lawrence be able to make the move? No, he can't. Max van der Geest does go slightly wide. Will that promote Lawrence to make? No, he can't. But will Lawrence be able to send it? No, he doesn't, as he stays just far behind, as Manlike only 4 behind Lawrence going on to the final lap.
Yeah, only one more lap to go now, and they have closed in to Nick enough so that Nick's 10-second time penalty will affect him too much. And so this is the battle for the lead of the race. Manlike, van der Geest, Lawrence, Finley, Kevin's as well. They're all in there, Finley and Kevin's, with 3 seconds worth of time penalty though. And yeah, Manlike, van der Geest and Lawrence, they're the 3 in the fight for the races. We've got 2 more DRS zones to go. This is one of them. And this is where we could see some moves being made. Van der Geest to the inside of Manlike. He's just going to back out of the move, but that's going to open the door to Lawrence, who's also going to get squeezed out. But that's going to open the door to Finley, who's going to try to head around the outside, but he's going to get squeezed out. And, well, a sense of deja vu a couple of times there with a few of those drivers. Nick leads into Cops, but Manlike, he leads the race at heading into and out of Cops. He's won before this season, and he's looking like he's going to be on for another race victory. He's picked up a podium in China, a race victory in Texas, a second place in Las Vegas, and today he could be looking for that win. Max van der Geest, though, he's looking for his first win of the season as he heads around the outside. The victory could be taken by the V-Carb as there's battling between Manlike and Lawrence. There's Finley involves himself in the battle. There's contact, and Lawrence heads back through on Manlike, but the victory is taken by Max van der Geest. The bridesmaid finally becomes the bride as he wins on his 5th attempt in Console Tier 2 Season 19. Lawrence in 2nd, Manlike in 3rd, Kevins and Finley 4th and 5th, with Nick ending up classified 6th, Typical in 7th, Alpha Kevin in 8th, Niall Gio in 9th, just ahead of More Minotaur by 100th of a second for the battle for that final points position. And then Simbarox, Nam and Schumacher will all finish outside the points. But your race winner today, ladies and gentlemen, and thank God I finally get to say it, Max van der Geest.
Wow. That's all I can say about that whole race. Just wow. Beautiful performance from Max van der Geest, but I have to say, an even better one for TTM Nick. He, of course, did take the win on track, but unfortunate penalties did mean he's been demoted all the way down to 6th place. But is Max van der Geest your winner this evening in Console Tier 2, finally, as he does actually increase his podium streak to 5 races in a row now, this time finally getting that win that he so truly deserves. Now we can see podium celebration here. Max van der Geest will be coming out as it is a Dutch 1-2, as Manlike did take 3rd place. And for Lawrence as well, pretty good race for him as well, as Lawrence all the way down in 12th place in the standings will move him up quite a substantial bit, I believe, after this race, if he doesn't get penalties for that little incident he had with Finley. I'm not sure if that was him or not, but of course I'm not here to point fingers. I'm just here to commentate, but very good race from the 3 of them, getting on the podium as we can see. The final classification here, we've got Max van der Geest, who did take the win here, followed by Lawrence in 2nd place. Manlike did take 3rd place, followed by Kevins in 4th. Finley in 5th after getting involved in an incident in that final corner. Nick, who provisionally won, but of course got a penalty of 10 seconds. Alpha T Typical in 7th place. Alpha Kevin in 8th. Neil Guio in 9th. And your final point scorer, More Minotaur. The rest of the finishers, Timberox, Nam and Schumacher. And you've got Chris Trier and Harvey, who unfortunately did not actually finish this race. So tell me, who is your driver of the day today?
I think Max van der Geest managed that race incredibly and was able to take it over the line. So for me, I think he deserves a shout as, up there at least. I think Manlike as well, he performed very, very well to climb up the grid. 3rd place is where he ended up finishing. And I think those would be the 2 drivers that I would call drivers of the day. I think we could have seen a hell of a lot more from a couple of the drivers that just ended up fighting a little bit too much. Finley was one of those, and I think had he pulled off some of those moves, he would have definitely been driver of the day. But yeah, for me, I think it's hard to look past Max van der Geest.
Absolutely. Of course, Lawrence did move up to 2nd place in the end there, so did do pretty well as well. So I'd have to say my driver of the day will have to go to Lawrence there. Pretty good drive for him as well, starting 4th, moving up to 2nd in the end. So, of course, a little bit dirty, possibly. I'm not here to point fingers, as I mentioned earlier, but he might be at fault from those incidents that happened in that final corner, but managed to get 2nd place in the end. So, for Lawrence.
Yeah, and very, very good race that we bore witness to, with a lot cooking. And, it came out the oven and it was hot, hot, hot. We've got now, we've got half the season to go, with Netherlands being our next trip next week. And I'm sure you'll be joined by Dom at the very least. And I know they're watching the stream. Ace, please come and commentate next week. If not, then it's likely to be me again. And I won't complain at all about that. But yeah, Netherlands will be the next track that the drivers will look to traverse. Then it's Hungary before we end for 2024. There'll be no more racing in 2024 in WOR. And then we'll pick up on January the 10th in Canada, then Austria, and then we'll finish off with Sao Paulo. But thank you very much to those of you who've tuned in tonight. And until next time, it is goodbye.